Hey guys, it's Jay. First of all, I wanted to apologize for being out of commission for so long. Almost immediately after the channel started, I had some issues at my work and some mental health problems, which I'll talk about in another video. The topic that I want to talk about is coming out, and I guess coming out stories was the topic for this one. The way I came out was not necessarily elegant, and I think mostly it's something that I wouldn't recommend anyone do. I was in middle school when I kind of realized that, you know, the whole lesbian thing wasn't like entirely what was going on with me. I knew that there was something else underlying, and it didn't really occur to me until I was a freshman in high school. And I came out to a couple people in high school, but it wasn't very serious because I still presented in a very feminine way, and I think most of them realized that and was like, okay, just take your time. And then some stuff happened my freshman year, so I ended up moving away from the town where I grew up. And I realized kind of over the summer that I couldn't be as unhappy as I was. And I've always struggled with like depression and anxiety and things like that. But, you know, presenting in a feminine way and doing things like that really did not help it at all. And it made me kind of miserable to be around, and I know that I felt so miserable in my own head. I can't imagine what it was like for, you know, my friends and my family. So I ended up coming out to my brother, my older brother. It was very convenient for me because he just graduated high school and he was going into the Navy. So what I ended up doing was I wrote him a letter and I gave it to him the day he left for boot camp. Just to give him some time to process it and maybe help me out. Because I do trust him with a lot of things. Not necessarily because I know he's particularly understanding, but because he has a very hard time being judgmental of anything. I mean, he's a great brother. He's not good with advice, but he is very non-judgmental, which is good. Another thing that kind of happened when he left for boot camp was that I, ended up kind of taking some of his clothes just because all of the clothes that I had were very, very feminine and they were making me very uncomfortable, and I was not out to my parents. So I couldn't be like, hey, I want to go do this, because I felt like it would raise some eyebrows, and I was so anxious about my parents finding out and anyone really finding out, but I also couldn't outwardly present as a girl anymore. It just was making me so miserable. So I ended up stealing some of his clothes just because they were there and he wasn't using them. And my mom, she noticed and she was like, why are you wearing your brother's clothes? And I'm like, oh, just whatever. And eventually this all kind of came to a T, like all these weird things that I was doing, like cutting all my hair off and wearing my brother's clothes, and just the fact that I was very, very miserable, not being honest with the people who I loved, the people I cared about. When my mom started, my mom and my dad went camping, and they ended up getting really bad poison ivy, and they were on some anti-itch medicine or an anti-inflammatory or something that makes you like super angry and pissed off all the time. So they were like really short with everything. Like if you said something to them, they'd blow up, and it wasn't their fault. It was just like the effects of the medicine and the fact they were so miserable. And I think, the fact that I was really miserable in general and the fact that they were kind of just pissed off all the time really scared my mom. And something happened, I don't remember what. My mom was like, what are you hiding from me? What is causing you to be so, act this way, And I didn't tell her, and ended up going to see my therapist at the time, who I had not talked at great lengths about this with, because it was something that I was really trying to figure out on my own at that point. And, I told her that my mom was kind of like catching on to the way that I was behaving kind of strangely. And she ended up telling my mom, which, don't know if you know anything about patient confidentiality, but you're really not supposed to do that unless you're in grave danger, and at that point I wasn't. But that's how I ended up coming out. It became kind of like a need-to-know thing. Like, if I know you, and we're friends, and you're referring to me with she, her pronouns, I'm gonna correct you, and I'm gonna say, this is what's going on, and that's the end of it. And for the most part, that's kind of how it's been. Immediately after I came out to my mom, though, she was very, like, confrontational about it, because I've always been a very androgynous, like, kid. Like, I was never super feminine as a kid. The only time, I think, in my life where I ever presented in a very feminine way was my freshman year of high school, just because I was so terrified of being labeled as anything, so I tried to conform, and that made me, like, super miserable. That was, like, probably one of the worst times of my life. I think, honestly, if I was ever gonna commit suicide, it would have been in that freshman year. And it's not just because of me, you know, presenting as something that I wasn't. A lot of other stuff happened that year, but that's, you know, one of the things that kind of just happened, like, it added on. So yeah, and because, like, I'd never been very abstinent as a very small child that, you know, oh, I'm a boy, because I don't think it's super common for kids to have that, like, intense knowledge of their gender at such a young age. Like, I just kind of went with the flow. And as I got older, especially once I hit puberty, things started to really become an issue for me. But the way that my mom understood it, because of, like, the media and the way they present trans people, she'd always thought of being transgender as one narrative, like it being, you come out as a kid, and then you go on puberty blockers, and then you go on hormones once you turn 16, and then you have bottom surgery, and that's the only way that you can be trans. And luckily I have a very supportive mother who, after that initial, like, I don't understand this, I can't deal with this right now, she ended up doing her own research and became one of my biggest advocates and supporters. So yeah, that was pretty much the only big coming out story that I have, other than my father, who I don't talk to anymore. But when I did kind of tell him, or I guess hinted at it mostly, he got very, very drunk and started going off about a lot of the things that were bothering him. Like the fact that him and my mother were no longer together, and how much he resented my stepfather for being a father figure in my life where he wasn't, which is his fault, but whatever. And also, I guess it just kind of, like, all of the statements that I'd been making that was kind of, like, hinting at it, it connected in his mind. Like, he knew what was going on, and he just refused to acknowledge it. But once he got super drunk on all of his, you know, his filters kind of came out, he decided that, you know, he wasn't okay with it, and that he ended up calling me a tranny freak, or a lesbian freak, and he ended up kicking me and my younger brother out of his house, which is about 6 hours away from where I actually live, in the middle of December with no shoes, in Wisconsin, which is, it's cold. So we ended up staying at a police station for like 3 hours, and then my mom came and got us. But so that can go well. Other than that, pretty much almost everyone who matters in my life has been fairly supportive. Even my grandfather, who's a very conservative Republican, when it kind of became very apparent that this was happening, he talked to my mom, and he's like, well, this wasn't something that they did back when I was a kid, but yeah, whatever, I'm okay with it as long as he's happy. And, you know, that makes me super, super happy that everyone in my life, you know, even though maybe we're not all on the same page about things, that they care, and that they're trying, and that it was never anything that I had to be worried about not being loved, or not having a home because of it. And I really do appreciate that. So yeah, that's it. And again, I'd like to apologize for the fact that I've been out of commission for so long. More videos will be coming in the future, and I'll explain why I was gone for so long in the next video, because the next topic kind of ties into it. But other than that, this is Jay, and we'll see you guys next video.